Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, along with...
Hi, good morning. I'm Bonnie Snyder, your co-host.
And we have a couple guests. We're so excited. We have a full studio today. We mentioned it a little bit last week, but we're going to just hold off just a couple minutes while we do some housekeeping before we introduce them. So first off, we of course want to thank John with Area 52 Media Group, and today we have Cage on the board, and I'm really excited about that. So he's helping out too. Of course, we wouldn't be able to do this without their support and one of our sponsors, DeLynn Gaston with the mortgage firm. And we're so happy to have her on board too. DeLynn's awesome. So if you're looking for a mortgage, refinance, even if you have credit issues, she can help you get all lined up with all that so that when you're ready, you can be pre-approved and make the process easier.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, we love her.
Oh yeah, she's awesome. So we had mentioned last week that we had, a few of us had gone out on a little boating trip. You couldn't come. But
Duty called.
Duty called. So, and we had a wonderful time. A few months ago, we were contacted by Freedom Boat Club of Tampa Bay, and they gifted people that we've helped through our foundation a boat ride. And I never even had heard of them before, and they have boats right here in Port Richey. And so we went out last Thursday. Can't remember the date. 7th, 6th, somewhere. Anyways, for a morning trip, and it was awesome. It was nice and relaxing for our lost survivors. And so I want to introduce Captain Katie Falcon. She spent her entire life on the water and is passionate about sharing her love of boating with others. And she is the Community Investment Director for Freedom Boat Club of Tampa Bay and shares this passion through environmental, educational, and social equality initiatives. And our captain was Sara Tunder. She was so awesome. She grew up on a small lake in Ohio and moved to Florida to work year-round on the water. She's been with Freedom Boat Club of Tampa Bay for 5 years, recently becoming a community investment coordinator to help the company give back to the community. So, welcome, Katie and Sara. We're so glad to have you here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here too.
So, I find this kind of fascinating because I've never heard of an organization, and I'm sure that they do, maybe they just call it something different. Community Investment Coordinator.
So what we pretty much do is we do in-kind donations to organizations through our sunset cruises, just cruises on the water. We work with a lot of nonprofits, and we just find ways to kind of give back to the community.
So if you could explain tell us like Tammy and I were talking, it's like we hadn't heard of Freedom Boat Club. I mean, I'm a Jersey native. I grew up on the water, so it's like boats, water, it's second nature to me. But if you could explain, what is Freedom Boat Club? Like, when was it founded, and what drew you to that organization?
Freedom Boat Club was founded in 1989 down in Sarasota, and started out as just a little thing, but now we're not only nationwide but worldwide now. But we're at the Tampa Bay locations. We got over 30 locations in the Tampa Bay area, over 750 boats for our members to use, and we got a couple locations right here in Port Richey.
Yeah, I was amazed about that. That was so cool. And so at the Port Richey location, you had pontoon boats, and there's a couple other boats.
Pontoon boats, deck boats. We got some offshore boats there. And at some of our other locations, we have flats boats, bass boats, especially on lakes. We got one on Lake Tarpon there. Yeah.
And if you could, okay, so I heard you say pontoon, flat, and the other boats. If you can explain, like, what is the difference between the different boats? Like, when I hear pontoon, it's like, that's party boat, When I hear, like that's...
Well, we went out on a pontoon boat, and it wasn't quite a party, but it was it was really nice.
Here's what I would say, and party does not, for me anyway, does not necessarily mean like, drinking and wild music and being wild, a group
But
of
in the
people
music
going out.
videos, they
Yeah,
are.
well, there's that too, and like I said. But again, if you could like explain what is the difference between the boats, and like if I were coming in, I was like, hey, I want to go spend the day on the water. Again, the different boats, and what would be the reason for me to go like on a pontoon or out on a flat boat, or whatnot.
Yeah, it just comes down to preference at the end of the day. Like personally, I like taking the offshore boats out. Most people take those out, going fishing, going offshore. But they're nice to also take to the islands. If it gets a little choppy on the way back in, then they'll cut through anything. But the pontoons are good for families. If you got your dogs on board, so it's a little bit more of a stable ride on the pontoons. The deck boats, they're also good family boats, but they don't have the capacity of pontoons. And then the flats boats and the bass boats, those are more for inshore fishing, so you can get into the skinnier water.
Gotcha. Yeah, my uncle and his wife had a pontoon. And it was like, yeah, I'll go out. I had more of the speedboat because I had to do the tubing and whatnot. That was my passion. So you do a lot of work with nonprofits. Why?
Just because we like to give back to the community.
Yeah, we have one of our missions is to give back to the communities in which we serve, and one of the ways that we do that is through partnering with nonprofits to share not only the pleasures of being on the water, but also primarily the healing powers of being on the water. It is very therapeutic. There's been a lot of research done and books written on the healing properties of not only being on the water but being around it. And so Sarah and I are in unique positions to be able to share our love of being on the water with people who can benefit from the experience. And so we loved partnering with your organization and sharing what we do with your families. We do the same with other groups as well throughout the Tampa Bay area.
One thing that you weren't aware of, that two of us on that boat, right around the time that we went out, was the anniversary of us losing our loved ones to suicide. Me, of course, April 8th was when I lost my husband, and then one of the gals on there, she's my neighbor, and I think it was the day or two afterwards was the anniversary of her losing her only son. And for her, it had been 15 years. And we were hoping her daughter could come too, but she was busy. But Kendra was just so grateful for her. It was her way. She spoke to me about this prior to us going, that this was going to be her way of healing during that time and celebrating her son also. So it made it special for her, and to be around other survivors. And being around the water, yeah, it is healing. I mean, I grew up on the water in Washington State, actually on a lake and a river, but going out on that pontoon boat that day was just, I'd never been on a pontoon boat. I mean, we had boats that you could water ski behind, that's what we grew up with. But when we went out on that pontoon boat, I mean, we saw dolphins going out to the stilt houses, and I did figure out which house was Johnny Cash's house.
Oh.
It was the further one out with the bigger one with the roof that went out always, kind trying to, anyways, because it came up on a Facebook post, and I'm like, oh, it was the last one we were talking about.
Oh, that's funny.
So, I know, it was really kind of funny, because, yeah, when we were going out to the stilt houses, we were talking about Johnny and June Cash's house that they used to have down here years ago. And I used to know exactly which one it was. And, oh, maybe it was that one. No, maybe it was that one. No, I think it's really that one, and it was the last one, and yeah, it was kind of funny. But then coming back in, and I'd never seen them in the wild. Of course, we had gone up to Sims Park, and we stopped and got out, and coming back, we saw manta rays, stingrays, whatever you call them. I'd never seen them in the wild, and that was in the river. It was really cool. Everybody was just, and it was just mellow, you know. And us gals, there were five of us, and we just kind of sat around and just kind of chatted, you know. And Sarah participated. She was awesome. I was a captain and put her 2 cents in every once in a while, and it was just a really nice time. I think for the first time for our organization to experience something like this, with the gals that went, and it was a really small group. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think it was a little bit more healing for all of us, and just to share that together. I was really hoping that we would have a lot more. We had actually like 5 people canceled because they were sick. Evidently there was a bug going around. So I was kind of bummed about that, but it ended up being just really wonderful. And for organizations like yours to gift something like that to organizations like ours is just so amazing.
I always wonder, you know, as I'm listening, you know, and taking all of this in, you know, I agree with the therapeutic process, you know, properties of being on the water. Anything that, you know, is calming and peaceful, in, you know, when people are dealing with, you know, any kind of, you know, whether it's trauma or just, I've got a lot of chaos going on in my life. I'm always struck, you know, those of us that get into our respective fields, you know, sometimes we get into the field because we bring a story with us. So if I asked you guys, you know, what you're comfortable with, do you bring a story to the reason why you do what you do? Like, you know, why work on a boat other than, oh, it's a, you know, duh, Bonnie, it's a boat. You know,
Oh, come on, it's like they're playing for work.
Work. I mean, you know, look at, I think from this perspective, I mean, my work, I'm, you know, in mental health, and, you know, my gosh, do I have a story, you know, as to what, I didn't enter this field, this was not my dream, you know, in no way, shape, or form. Like when I was little, I was going to be a teacher. Second grade, I was going to be a teacher because my second grade teacher loved her. Fourth grade teacher, yep, going to be a teacher. My mom, when I got into middle school, you know, felt that I should be an attorney. And I was like, so for years and years, I want to be an attorney. And then I joined the military, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be an attorney. And, you know, here I am. You know, I can say 30 some odd years later. Let's see, my daughter is, yeah, almost 40 years later, you know, I'm in this field, you know, and it just happened. But, you know, again, let me throw the question back at you. And again, what you're comfortable with. Why this, you know, I hate to call it a job, you know, because when I think a job, it's like that.
Journey.
It minimizes. Why this profession?
You want to take that one first, Sarah?
Sure. Well, I grew up on the water up in Ohio. I lived right across the road from a little lake. My neighbor actually managed the marina, so when I turned 16, and my mom was like, hey, go work at the marina. And so I just started working there, and you know, it's only a summer job up in Ohio because you close everything down in the winter. Can't do it for 6 months out of the year, and we came down to Florida, you know, every year for my birthday in February, so I was like, oh, well, it's a full-time job down there, so moving out of my parents' house, I came right down here. I saw a fuel dock that, you know, kind of looked like the one from back home. I walked up, and there's Freedom Boat Club there. So it was the first place I went to, and they're like, all right, come on in. So I worked with Freedom for about 5 years, and I started to get a little overwhelmed working on the dock in the heat all the time because I started getting heat exhaustion more and more frequently, and this position came up, and we do a lot of environmental cleanups too, and that's what my education is in, is natural resources, so I was like, sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And for me, it was growing up in Michigan, and that is the boating capital of the United States, the most owned vessels in the nation. So
Really?
yeah, it
didn't
is.
know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that either. You'd think it would be down here.
You would think so.
Or some,
I think we're
someplace
close.
on the
close.
coast, you know?
Yeah. So just being on the water all the time, I mean, it was a lifestyle. It was what we did as a family, and so it always brought me joy. And so in my working career, I've done other things too, and boating has always been a hobby, but I had the opportunity about 4.5 years ago to join Freedom Boat Club and use my captain's license, teaching people how to safely operate vessels. That's one of the things we do at Freedom Boat Club, is we make sure that all of our members have the training that's necessary to make them comfortable operating their own boat. Because like on your trip, you had Sarah, our members don't have to take a captain with them. They can take the boat themselves for their group, their party. Through my time at Freedom Boat Club, I saw a great need for some environmental work. That's where this job, this career path started at Freedom Boat Club. Community investment came into being because we saw a need and we acted. There was a group of us that just started doing things on our own time to make the world that we were operating in a little bit better. And in doing so, we met some really awesome groups, some really great nonprofit organizations that have partnered with us and have helped us not only on the environmental missions, but we can also partner and help them in their missions as well.
No, it's pretty awesome. Hey,
That is pretty-
maybe we get a bunch of our people together to do environmental cleanup too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, that would be.
We would love to have you.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I
think it's,
didn't know you guys did that. I mean, it makes perfect sense,
Yeah.
but I had no idea, the scope of what you guys actually do and are involved in, and it's awesome.
And of course, my brain is spinning like, oh my gosh, the things that,
I know, mine too.
the areas that, what you guys do, and where it's, oh, you'd be a really good fit for over here, and if you were doing this over here. I have my feet in a couple of different, organizations, coalitions, because, this one is dear to my heart, just because it is.
It's all because of me. No.
It is because, it is totally your, well, it's not
My
your
fault.
but it's your fault.
It's my fault.
No, it was our coalition's fault, because if we hadn't had you at that meeting, I would have
Right.
met you. And that was my fault. If I had to come back to work when I did, I would have missed it. There's a story behind how Tammy and I met.
No, you don't need to tell it again.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and it led to this. But so what I heard you say, getting back on track and coming out of that rabbit hole that we tend to go down from time to time. So I heard you say members can go out on their own boats. They don't always need a captain. So let me start with, what does it take? What is the process of becoming a member of Freedom Boat Club?
Sure. So Freedom Boat Club is the largest membership-based boat club in the world. We just celebrated our 380th location. We have here in the Tampa Bay area, like Sarah said, we have over 30. I think we're up to 33 locations. But anywhere you want to go for vacation, you can get a boat. I was in San Diego last summer and went on a picnic on my own boat. My husband and I sat in the shadow of SeaWorld and on our vessel and had a picnic lunch. It was nice. if I want to go to France or Australia or Canada, I can get boats in all of those places. I've been a boat owner my entire life. Our best members are people who have experienced owning boats, but that's not the only member that we have. And how you become a member of Freedom Boat Club is we have a one-time joining fee, an initiation fee, similar to, I would call it like a country club or something like that, but instead of golfing, you're boating. So you pay your initiation fee one time ever in your lifetime, and then you pay a monthly fee. And the only thing on top of that you'll ever pay is the fuel you use. Our training program is significant for our new members because many members come to us without the confidence to be able to dock their own boat, anchor their own boat, navigate the places that they want to go, and keep their families and friends safe. And so we train them. We spend a minimum of 3 or 4 hours on the water the first time with the member, making sure that they're able to do the basic things of being on a vessel. And then we meet with them another once or twice, depending on their experience level, and teach them how to safely go offshore to go fishing or sightseeing or whatever they want to do. It's a little more advanced class. In addition, Freedom Boat Club offers free unlimited training for the entire time you're a member. That means, Sarah and I have been boating our whole lives, and I think she'd agree with me when I say I learn things every time I'm on the water.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and thankfully my lessons have been kind. Not all lessons are kind, and sometimes you find yourself in a situation that is, I could probably use a little more practice doing whatever that thing is. All you have to do is arrange for a licensed captain like Sarah or myself or one of our others to come out with you to practice docking if you didn't like the way that went last time, or anchoring, or various other skills, finding your way home.
Is included in the membership, because I
Yeah.
hear about it a lot around here, especially with our weather. Sea tow or something similar to that included with all this?
I'm glad you asked. You want to take that, or you want me to?
Yeah, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, sure. So we, not only do we assist our members whenever possible, but CTO is also included in your membership. It's included in your first year, and then for a small fee each year after that, you have the benefits of CTO. So you're never by yourself. One of the things I like to brag about having been a boat owner is when you own a boat and something breaks, your weekend is over, and it's not just your weekend. Usually it's 3 or 4 weeks or months waiting for not only the part to come in, but the person to come fix it, because mechanics are in short supply. With Freedom Boat Club, if I am out on a boat today and something breaks, chances are good the dock is going to bring me another boat and send me right back on my way. It's not my responsibility to fix it, or I don't have to struggle with finding someone to do that repair work for me.
Yeah, I've always heard there's a saying that a boater's happiest days are the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat.
Absolutely.
There's a third one. It's the day they join Freedom Boat Club.
Oh, that's good.
That's good. Yeah.
That's a good one.
So I heard you say sea tow, and for people who may not understand, excuse me, what is sea tow? Can you explain that?
It's AAA for the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you end up someplace that you're stuck, they'll come get you and assist you.
Yeah, that's short, sweet, and simple.
Yeah.
AAA.
It is. Yeah, I never thought of, that is exactly what it is. It is AAA for the water.
The other thing I heard you say is, as a boat owner, you learn something new every day. And I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, it's kind of a weird thing. I moved here from, Kansas. That was the Army's idea, not mine. But when I was in Kansas, I had, two boats. And as I was moving here to Florida, a couple people looked at me and said, sell the boat before you go to Florida, because you're not going to be able to use that boat in Florida. Freshwater, saltwater.
Yeah.
And, I was like, what the devil is the difference? It's a boat. Help us with, people like that is like, what is the difference between is there a difference between a freshwater boat and a saltwater boat? Or if I bought the same boat here in Florida, I would put it in the water and it would be okay. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, There's not too much of a difference between freshwater and saltwater boats. Like there's some boats you'll typically see more on freshwater and some you'll typically see more in saltwater, but for the most part, we've seen them go back and forth.
So it's a myth, I sold my boat for nothing.
And we have freshwater lakes here in Florida,
Yeah.
too.
Perhaps there are styles of engines that we're used to having on our lakes up north that just, you can use them down here, they just won't last very long, and the repair costs will be very expensive for you. And the resale, what you'd be able to sell that specific up north freshwater lake boat for down here, you just won't get. So you might have sold your boat for a good reason.
Yeah.
I was working on my doctorate, so it's kind of like, I'm not going to have time for boating, so I'm going to be in school full time, so I'll just,
Yeah, what kind of boat was it?
Okay, you would ask me that question. So the first boat I bought, I can only describe it as a project boat.
They're all project boats.
But this was, to me, I look at it seriously, depending on how you define, project boat. But there was a guy, he had a boat, and it was like, the only thing that was good about it, I guess, was the hull and the engine. And, the rest of it was like, oh, this kind of, in a bit of a state of disrepair. And I was like, okay, so what do you want to, do you want to sell it? It was like, yeah. So I took it in, we stripped the entire boat, like down to the hull. And, so to me, it was like, it was a total project boat. So like my ex-husband, he was very good with woodworking, so he rebuilt the frame, the framework. And then my uncle, he's gone now. I love my Uncle Dave. He was really good with, upholstery and whatnot, and I did a lot of the sewing. And so between the three of us, we completely refurbished this boat. And when it was all over, people were like, oh my God, where'd you buy the boat? I was like, no, I bought the shell. Everything else was us. But I just remember it had, what was it, a Mercruiser engine in it. Loved it, because it was fast and it was furious. And the second boat, that one was more, I looked at it because of the way it was shaped. To me, it was more of a, we're going to go out to one of the state lakes in Kansas called Tonganoxie. We're going to go Tongi. The guys are going to go fishing, take that boat. I don't fish. I went fishing once, and the guys wanted to throw me over the edge, and I vowed I would not go fishing again. And then my second boat was more of like a ski boat, if I wanted to go to our lake and, do tubing and water skiing and whatnot. But I've been here in Florida, 15 years now? So I do not remember the name of that boat or what. Someone's like, describe this boat. I know what it looked like.
Yeah.
Don't ask me for too.
I can draw it for you.
Yeah.
I have a canoe.
That's good. Very little maintenance on a canoe.
Oh, yeah.
Kayaks. I have kayaks now, kayaks and paddle boards.
Well, and Freedom Boat Club offers both, just saying.
Really?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, in some of our
Did you say you have
locations.
the clear bottom ones too?
We had. What we have now are more sturdy. The clear kayaks are great for the first time or two you put them in the water, and then they're not great anymore because it gets, it's kind of like your headlights on your car after you've owned the car for 8 years, right?
Yeah,
Except it
okay.
happens much faster on the clear kayaks. So the ones we have are fishing kayaks with rod holders and storage, and they're wide, stable, so you can stand up in them, things like that. Not all locations, but downtown Tampa, we have a bunch, and we utilize them in our cleanup efforts as well. And I know, Sarah, you run kayak cleanups up here too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So someone doesn't have to own their own boat to be a member, or do they?
No, we
that's the whole
are the
idea.
alternative to boat
Yeah,
ownership.
that's the whole idea is you don't
Yes.
have to.
You never have to do upholstery, and it's fun to do one time, right? It is. But do you want to do it twice?
You're asking the wrong person.
Exactly. Yeah.
The one of the gals that was on our trip, her and her husband are members of
Oh, that's
Freedom Boat
awesome.
Club. Yeah,
Good.
yeah, and she said they go out a lot,
Yes.
I think mostly between here and Sarasota they do, but yeah, I didn't even know that. I mean, I've known her for a while, but I didn't know. But that was cool.
What would you say has been the most common misconception with individuals as it relates to boat ownership? Because I remember when I got my first boat, it was in my brain, it was like, it's a boat. You put it on the water, you go, you have a good time, you come back, park it, and that's it. Then of course you find out that's not it. But what would you say is the most common misperception that people have about boat ownership?
I'd say that you'll be boating all the time because you pull it out of the water, you let it sit for a month, 2 months, because work got busy, I can't go back out. You put it back in the water, you back the trailer in, and you turn the key and the battery's dead. Or I've seen some at marinas where a rat had chewed through the steering cable. So, when they're just sitting there, then things are going to start going wrong more and more. And that's something that's nice about our boats, is that they're getting used nearly every day. So, the battery's getting charged properly. No raccoons going in there eating stuff up. And if they are, it's going to get caught immediately.
No surprise guests on your trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, you'll find us at boat shows quite frequently. And for people who are buying a boat for the first time, there are things they think about, like the initial costs, and boats are very expensive. We're talking $100,000+ for most of them. And even pontoons, are up there. They're not a cheap thing to buy. And that's not the end. So if you are fortunate enough to find in the water space a marina, you're probably going to end up paying $800 a month to keep it there. If you have property, you live up here and you have property, that's great. How are you going to tow it? Who's going to help you launch it? It's not so easy to do it yourself. It can be done, but it's not easy. So all of those, now you have to buy a new truck too, in order to tow the boat. And then the repairs, like Sarah is saying as well. And your boating day is not done when you're the boat owner. You have all your family, like the trip you guys took last week. If you owned that boat, everybody else has a great time, picks up their stuff and goes home. Somebody has to wash down the boat and make sure it has fuel and do any small repairs that need to happen. So these are the longer term things that first-time boat owners don't consider.
Yeah, all we had to do is get off the boat.
Yeah. And that's all our members have to do.
And we were like, oh, do you need us to do anything? We help you? Oh, no, you just get off the boat. Like, sweet.
And I look at that, being educated, as it relates, to boat ownership. It's not meant to dissuade people from, you don't want to own a boat because, again, that cliche is the day you own it, the day you buy it, and the day you get rid of it are your best days. Understanding and knowing that, there is a lot more, similar like, your car. It's not just getting in a car, putting your key in the ignition and driving. There's oil changes and, changing the tires and making sure that, very, very similar. I would say car ownership here, boat ownership is, right here. But I think it's nice having an organization that is there to educate people and, or inform people, kind of like in my line of work, it's like, we want some informed, you want to be informed about what's going on here, right? You want to be knowledgeable about what you're dealing with, before
Well,
you
and it could be a way, if somebody is really interested in boat ownership, it could be like a first step to learning really what is going to be involved and learning how to operate different kinds of boats and making a decision whether or not you really want to have a boat.
That brings up a good point, because what I heard you say, if I'm a member of the boat club, all of the maintenance stuff is done by the club. Could I, as a member, say, hey, you know what, I want to be involved in all of the other stuff that I ordinarily wouldn't have to do? Can I do that?
It's not typical.
Okay.
Probably Sarah spent a lot of time on the dock, and I'm sure if a member asked you, can you show me how to fuel the boat? I'm sure she would have helped, shown you how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or fix a speaker.
Changing a prop.
Yeah, all of these things, absolutely. One of the nonprofits that I partner with through education, actually, we had the group of kids, they're high school age boys, in a diversion program, and so we brought them out to the dock and did exactly that. We taught them some of the basic boat maintenance, some of the how to change a prop, and they got to get their hands on it and actually do it. How to check that a speaker is connected properly, so yes, we do teach a little.
Oh, that was cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Tell us about your most notable or favorite adventure when you were out on the water. There's something funny, or I hope this never happens again, or one of each. But I always love to hear your adventures on the water. I remember one of mine, but share one of yours if you don't mind.
Well, I got one from when I first started boating here in Florida. I was used to going up in Ohio all the time. It was one of the first times I took my family out. We were going over our Tarpon Springs location on a 23-foot deck boat. And there's the fishing boats that come out of the sponge docks. And I was having a hard time learning how to cross the wakes because we did not have wakes that big on a 25 horsepower limited lake up in Ohio. So I tried to go with that 45-degree angle. There's a 4-foot wave coming, and at the very last second I realized there's dolphins in the wake of this fishing boat, and I'm crossing the wake and a dolphin goes right over our bow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we're like, whoa, that was really cool. And then 5 minutes later down the line, the water's drained out the back of the boat. I'm like, wow, if that dolphin was just at a different angle, that would have been really awful. But learned an important safety lesson that day. Scooch over a lot further, when one of those big old boats is coming, and keep an eye out for the dolphins in the wakes.
And mine has to do with dolphin too. Down in Tampa, we have the cruise ships that leave. We have 4 cruise ships that call Tampa home in the wintertime. And when they're leaving the port, the dolphin, when the ship starts coming up to speed, the dolphins come from all over the place to come play in the wake. And I happened to be out in the bay one day when the cruise ships were coming out, purely accidental. I've done it on purpose since then, but purely accidental the first time. And so I'm at the mouth of the Hillsborough River where it goes out into Tampa Bay, and there are dolphins coming from every direction, hundreds, I'm not kidding. And they all congregated in one area to wait for the cruise ship to get up to speed just enough, and they have a favorite one that has a bow configuration that allows them to surf. And so the cruise ship passengers are all out on the rails enjoying leaving port. They can't see what I see, which is all the dolphins spinning and jumping and playing in their wake. It was amazing.
Oh, wow.
So cool to watch.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, that would be
Makes
so
me want to go and
Yeah.
venture out when the cruise ship
It's so neat. Yeah.
Really? Oh, that is so cool. I was telling Sarah a few years ago, I was on a boat similar to that down in Punta Gorda or someplace down south. I was at a convention, and we went out on a boat, and the dolphins were following us, swimming in the wake and jumping. It was just so cool. And they were doing it on both sides of the boats. They were just playing. It was just really cool.
It is,
Like
it's
that.
magical, and I've seen it thousands of times, not kidding, and every time it's like the first time.
Well, it's like the dolphins are smiling when they're doing it, you know.
Yeah.
That just it does. They just look like they're smiling and having a really good time. It was cool.
Yeah, I remember boating. I was out in Kansas, and one of our state lakes. I think it's man-made lake. It's called Perry, and that's where if it's a holiday, we're out on Perry Lake camping, and we take the boat out. And it was night, and there've been Kansas, of course, tornadoes, storms. So every storm, we didn't realize there was a lot of debris in the water, and some of the debris was like really big trees. And I'm boating along, just having a good time, and I'm coming into the dock, and all of a sudden my boat just stopped. I'm like, oh, what is going on here? And I happened to look down, and just enough light and reflection. I had grounded myself or treed myself rather than grounded. I was stuck on this tree, and I'm like, wow, well, how am I going to get off this tree? Because I couldn't go anywhere. And so my ex, he got out, and he's like holding on to the boat, standing on this tree, like jumping up and down to try and like push it down in the water so I can like forge the boat, forward. We finally are like, all right, let me go backwards because it's going to catch on the, it's going to catch on the motor. This particular boat had an outboard motor, and it's like, oh my God, all right, jump, all right, and so we finally get off the, we get off this tree, and I was like, whew, that was a close one. The next day, we're getting ready to take the boat out, and the hydraulics for the outboard, one of them popped, and I was like, are you joking me? So, so much like vacation over, the boating part of the vacation over, it's like, oh guys, we'll be out here on the lake having fun, we're just not taking the boat out anymore. But no, I was like, loved it.
We grew up on the lake that we used to go to, where I grew up, Lake Chelan in Washington State, and the Columbia River. My hometown is right on the Columbia River, and I mean, when we were little kids, and look, we had in our boat we had an 8-track tape player.
Wow.
And that's how we learned how to swim. Our dad, we had life jackets on, but our dad would just throw us out in the middle of the lake, learn how to swim. And for years he tried to teach us how to water ski. My dad was a great water skier, and he wasn't the one who taught us how to ski. It was our friend's dad. We were out with them on their boat for the first time that I got up. And it was just really kind of funny. It was like, sorry, Dad, did a little bit better job, maybe. We were at this one place called Wapato Point, and I was probably like, I don't know, 12. And so my mom was driving the boat, and my dad was trying to get me to stand up. And my mom, she was used to my dad being behind the boat, so I'd get up and plant face first. It's like, this is not going to work. But yeah, and when I left, I've really never have had the opportunity. Or we had a friend who he actually built. He had a company. He built flats boats. He was a flats fisherman captain, and he took us out fishing out here, and it was so much fun. He's since passed away. He was really young. He was 49 and passed away of cancer, but it was always a lot of fun. But we've got our canoe. My husband actually, he built and I had to move it around in the shop recently, a thing to go on the back of the canoe so he could put a little motor on the back of it just to guide it around our little lake.
Motor?
Our trolling motor, yeah. I don't know. I still have the trolling motor. I don't even know if it even works anymore. I was moving things around in the shop, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to use this. Somebody even tried to take my canoe a couple weekends ago.
Off the property?
Off the property.
Oh, man.
I have it. Well, I live on a small lake, Yellow Lake, and I had it bungee cord to the trees down by the lake from the hurricanes from last year. And somebody had been messing around with my neighbor's property, and I'd gone down to the shop, and the canoe is typically tipped up on its side. well, we haven't had any weather that a hurricane wouldn't knock it over. I went out back. It was still bungee corded to the trees, but it was sitting flat. And I'm like, and it was in the middle of the night. You're not going to figure it out. And then I was thinking, what were you going to do with this canoe that you don't know where the paddles are? No. So I put it back upright, added more bungee cords.
BYOP, bring your own paddle?
Bring your own paddle. I don't know. But yeah, we got that when we first moved up here because we live on a small lake. But I just think it's amazing what you guys do in this organization. And something that I didn't even know about. How long have you guys been in Tampa Bay? That whole time, or?
Well, I've been here since the late 90s. So I've been here a very long time. Like I said, using the water as a hobby. It was only in the last 4 or 5 years that I made it a career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you? How long have you been down here?
I've only been here for 5 years now.
But you've been with Freedom Boat Club the whole time
Yeah.
that you've been here. How long has Freedom Boat Club been in Tampa Bay?
I'm not sure the exact.
2011.
Was it 2011?
Yeah, 2011. The Tampa Bay franchise. It was a franchise at that time. We are now a corporately owned location. Yeah, so I think 2011. Yeah, pretty sure.
Well, that's pretty good.
I have a pretty good percentage of I think I'm right here. We'll see.
Oh, I just think it's amazing. I mean, there's just so many different opportunities for people. Like I said, if you don't want to own a boat, or if you want to think about owning a boat, I mean, to just go out like what we did. I mean, we just showed up and they did everything, and we just chatted, and then off we went. It was, and their boats are, I mean, spectacularly clean. I mean, it was amazing. Like I said, I had never even been on a pontoon boat until then, and it was really nice and extremely pleasurable experience. So even if you wanted to do something like we did, do you have to be a member? Can you call up and say, hey, we want to do a boat trip, but maybe it's a one-time thing for a family, or...
And I'm not a member of the boat
Right.
club.
Yeah.
Thank you, because I was thinking that very same question.
Yeah.
So what we did for your organization is something that we do for nonprofits. But if some random person off the street who's not a member wants to take their family and friends out on our boats, that's not something that we do.
Okay.
Yeah, we host rides like that for different community groups and nonprofits, but the general public, we don't do charters like that.
Okay, so
Yep.
it's membership.
Yes, it is.
Membership.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, this is just us giving back. That's what it is.
No, and I think that's awesome. What other types of nonprofits have you engaged with and helped and gave support to?
Sure.
Like ours?
You want to start with that?
Yeah, well, I'm really new to this position, so I'm just kind of getting started working with other nonprofits. Yesterday, we did do a cruise for Vincent House of Pasco and Hernando.
I love Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah, we do.
She's
Oh,
a
yeah.
community partner, but
Everybody's
and also a
fantastic.
personal friend.
Elizabeth, was Elizabeth on there?
I'm not sure if I met Elizabeth, but we had both groups from
Great.
Pasco and Hernando there. I
that
was
is so
talking with
cool.
Casey, though.
We were literally just had our coalition meeting at Vincent House.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, it was a really fantastic group.
they are.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and environmental groups where Keep Pinellas Beautiful, Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful. We do a lot of cleanup efforts and partnerships with them. We also, Tampa Bay Watch in South Pinellas County, we do a lot of work with them. Vertical oyster gardens, oyster reef balls, trying to help restore our waterways. AMI Kids through their aftercare program, or their school-aged program, helping the kids. We've gotten them boater safety licenses, which is probably the first license these kids have had, and teach them that the water is accessible to everybody. We have a couple of assisted living facilities for adults with severe developmental disabilities that we take on the water a couple of times a month in Tampa, just again for that restorative healing power on the water. We partner with Florida Aquarium, bringing their volunteers, their staff. They do community work days as part of their job, and we take them out so they can be water-based to do some of their cleanups. And we just did Great Port cleanup with Port Tampa Bay. We removed invasive species. We collected over 8,000 pounds of trash in about 2 hours. Not just Freedom Boat Club, but through the partnerships.
Yeah, wow.
It's pretty incredible. And so just a sampling of some of the groups that we're part of.
So a follow-up question to that is, what is the minimum and maximum number of people that you could take out on a tour like that, or on a boat trip?
So on each vessel, we can have about 10 people, plus our captain. And then the group size, depending on what group we're taking out, we can usually arrange for more than one vessel and captain to be there. I've had groups as large as 30 to 50 come out with us. Having 3 or 4 vessels and captains is something we can arrange.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's, I'm glad the first trip with your group went well, and as it grows, Sara can certainly help you make it bigger and better and have more boats
Well,
and
now
captains.
having the experience, I was talking to someone the other day about it. In a way, I mean, at first I was disappointed that we couldn't get more of the people, to participate, but partly it was, sick, some kids in school. One of the other ones, they just started a brand new business, and but in a way I was kind of glad that it was that small group of us, because now I know what to expect. I know more about you guys and your organization and what you do, and how awesome Sara was. And so now, if we do this again sometime, then it'll be easier for me to kind of explain to the people involved in our organization and the people that we help what it's all about and how it works. And I think it'll be easier for me to get a little bit more buy-in with the people that we do help within our organization. And so that's why I was like, the universe works in weird ways, but maybe it was meant to be that way, because it was a small, intimate group of all women. We were all older. Sara was the baby. And but it was great, and we all went out to lunch afterwards. We went over to Whiskey Joe's and had lunch afterwards. And
One of my favorite places.
well, you missed out. But
Sorry, I have another job.
I know you have a real job. But every one of them had a really great time. I had awesome feedback from everybody, and even 2 of the gals, they didn't know each other, but knew the daughter. My neighbor that lived across the street, they have a business, and so one of the gals that was on there, her and her husband have a business, and they kind of have worked and gave referrals back and forth, but they had never met. And so it ended up being, just the whole thing ended up being really great. And I'm so happy that we had Sara as our captain for the first time.
Yeah, we want to, thank you both for, gracing the set with us today and, talking about Freedom Boat Club and educating people, about what you do, the awesome work that you're doing with nonprofits. I think it's something that we definitely need, here. And, and mind you, I'm biased, it's my field, what I do, but there is a biasness. So we do, thank you so much for joining us today. We also want to go back and remember to thank our sponsors.
I want to do that, but again, I want to thank you for gifting our organization that trip. It was awesome. It was, so if, you don't want to own a boat and you want to go on a boat ride, join Freedom Boat Club. I mean seriously, the opportunities and the different kinds of boats and everything is just so unlimited. It's really great. So of course we got to thank Cage, did an awesome job today, and we want to thank John, our producer, and Area 52 Media Group for giving us this opportunity every week. This is our 100th episode today. So.
And along with that, we want to do the reminder of the numbers. Make sure that you have them in your phone to include different numbers for different times. And Cage, if we can throw our quote up for today as well.
That was a good quote, especially for this show.
So the scars you share become the lighthouses for the people headed for the same rocks you hit. And we take turns throwing, sending the quote. I had no clue that you guys were going to be here today. I was just kind of oblivious. So that does, is very fitting in that, sometimes we are the lighthouse for people who, have been on a journey, similar to ours, or, we can share our experiences with them, there's life after tragedy.
Yep.
And as we close the show out every week, we always say,
remember, there's always hope.